everyone. Welcome to Blah, Blah, Blah. I am Katee Sackhoff, and I am so excited about today's guest. Before we get there, though, I want to remind you, if you are on YouTube, like and subscribe, and as well on Apple and Spotify, make sure that you subscribe. I'm really excited about today's guest. I have done his podcast. He is now coming to do mine, so we can continue talking about just a bunch of random shit. I am so excited. Please welcome Jack Osbourne.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's good.
Right on.
It's good.
Cool.
Yeah. I am really, really excited for you to be here.
I'm very happy to be here too. Thank you.
Although I went to when I did your podcast, I left there and I called my producer and I legitimately said, we need to step up our fucking game.
This is pretty good, I gotta say.
Thank you.
This is like,
this is all for you.
LED screens and like lights. This is good. I like the vibe.
Yours has got a tone though.
It does, and that's purely because of the human skeleton, the real human skeleton just in the middle of the table.
Is that a real human skeleton?
Yeah, it was a real human skeleton.
You didn't tell me that.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I would have given two shits, but...
You know, we kind of just, if people are curious and we let them ask, you know, it's not something I offer up. Like my sister, she found it like really offensive.
Yeah.
But the guy, like the guy whose skeleton it is, he like donated I guess he was a Mason, and the Masons use like human skeletons in their like rituals, and he donated his body to the Brotherhood. And
then how did you get the body?
So I got this skeleton from the Masonic Lodge shut down. Someone bought it and they found it in like the attic and auctioned it off. And so, yeah, I bought it. I've learned a whole bunch recently about like the human skull and skeleton like market. Like there's a whole thing.
For what purpose?
Like
other than to display them in your table?
Yeah, just like purchasing them, you know, and like... Yeah, there's all sorts of weird, like, there's an actual, like, market value, like, what the price of a skull is and the condition of the skull and if it has got teeth and this, that, and the other.
So teeth are good?
Teeth are good, and having is it the mandible?
The mandible, this lower piece?
Yeah, if that's included, you know, if the skull has been cut, like, there's all sorts of different things.
How does the skull get cut? You mean, like, when the person's alive?
Well,
like,
no,
if they died from a sword to the head?
Well, usually, like, if they're preparing the human body to then just be turned to bones, they have to remove the brain, so they have to like cut the skull. Versus like a skull that was like buried and like
the brains were inside.
Yeah,
that's really
it's really weird. Yeah,
that's really crazy.
Yeah.
I went to this place in Arizona where they cryopreserve brains.
Whoa!
But they keep it alive so that at some point in the future they're banking on the fact that the technology will be around to then bring this person back with their thoughts.
Yeah. Do you think we are our brain, or do you think we're more than our brain?
I mean, I think that we are probably just our brain.
Okay.
What do you think?
I don't know. Like,
I mean, are we talking about God?
Well, I guess we could be talking about God. We could more talking about souls. Like,
right.
Does your soul live in your brain? Like,
right, because we've talked about ghosts before.
Yeah.
And I do believe in ghosts. Therefore, I can't actually say that we are just our brains. Correct?
Yeah. And here's the thing too that I was thinking about earlier. Like, we're definitely not our bodies, because if we were and we truly knew our bodies and like we were like this meat suit that we walk around in, like. You would be able, if I could ask you like, hey, what's your spleen doing right now?
Could you imagine if I could tell you?
Exactly. And you were like, oh, it feels like this. Like, I can't tell. The only thing I can tell you is like my breath. That's it.
I'm literally thinking to try and think if I can tell you, like at times I could tell you if my food is digesting.
Okay. There you go.
I could tell you when an egg drops. I'm very sensitive with my fallopian tubes.
Okay. All right.
So I think that I could probably tell you that.
Okay.
But beyond that.
Do you hear like a...
There's an audible. Honey?
Get in here. Round 2.
Here we go. No, I mean like there's not, I think it's just it's like a feeling for sure. Yeah. I mean the food is like you can hear it.
Yeah. And like I guess your heart, like you can kind of feel your heart rate.
You can.
Yeah.
And you can sort of control your heart rate and things like that for sure. But you're right. For the most part, it is, you know,
I can't tell you what my kidney or liver are doing. You know. Yeah,
thank God.
Yeah.
Because from a hypochondriac standpoint, I would like never leave my house.
How bad of a hypochondriac are you?
Pretty bad. I mean, like, in the sense that something has happened to me since we have our daughter now, that I was scared of flying before. I have this intense fear of being on a plane for anything longer than like 5 hours when I know the Wi-Fi is going to cut out over an ocean. And
so Hawaii is out of the question.
It has gotten, unless I'm with them.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, because if I'm going to go, take them with me.
Totally.
I don't know why that makes it better. It should probably make it worse. But yeah, so it's gotten a little, like, I've tried to calm it down, but it's, you know, I'm up there.
Yeah, it's I feel you on the flying thing. I mean, did you see the footage of that Russian Wagner Group guy? You know, they shot his plane down.
No.
So
I thought you were going to start talking about UFOs.
No. So like that Russian like private military contractor guy, the Wagner Group, he was like they're like the Blackwater that's in Ukraine, right? Like fighting for Russia and Ukraine.
Yes.
So the general tried to have like start a military coup in Russia, and then it just kind of went quiet, and then his plane blew up in the air, and there's footage of, you see like a second after the explosion, and you just see this plane like tumbling out of the sky like a leaf for like 3 minutes. People were like alive on that thing as it was just careening down towards. That to me is like, can you imagine you got 3 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever to sit there and be like, okay, this is gonna really fucking like
this is it.
This is it. Like,
this is it. Hence my desire for Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Because I'm convinced in that moment
you can just rattle off
I
love you.
text off as much as I need to and tell everyone that I love them.
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
I get that.
That's in my thing. That's my brain where it goes.
I get that. I nearly got struck by lightning mountain climbing one time, and I was like desperate to find Wi-Fi to be like not Wi-Fi, to get cell signal up there, and I managed to like get a couple texts off. Didn't want to freak anyone out. I was like, hey, I just want to let you know I love you. Like,
where, like, how do you? Did it strike next to you?
It was, so we were climbing in Banff, and we were just about to summit. And all of a sudden, a lightning storm came in. It was the summer, so like, you know.
Yeah.
Like everyone's hair that we were climbing with stood on end. You could like, all our carabiners, you could like touch, and you would get an electric shock. We were in the middle of like a lightning cloud. Wow. Yeah, and like it was super sketchy. And the guy that I was climbing with was an incredibly like experienced guy named Barry Blanchard. He was like calling in like, we need a helicopter up here to get us down, and like,
oh my god. But a helicopter can't land in that.
No, there was a break in the clouds, and it popped in, grabbed us, and like we got out of there. It was pretty sketchy.
I would imagine. Did you have a desire, like, you've got 4 daughters?
Yeah.
I feel like, being the mother of one daughter, I should have like apologized for you. It's
emotional.
How many meltdowns in your house have there been today?
Oh, man. Today, it was the first day of school. One is home sick in bed with the flu. The others were good this morning getting up. So yeah, they were so the 2 going, and then Maple's baby, she's been kind of teething. So it wasn't actually that emotional this morning. Yesterday, going to like orientation was emotional. There was some tears, and you know, my 5-year-old was pretty upset about going to meet her new teacher, but who's a lovely woman, and she knows because it's on like, they're in the classroom next door, and she was at TK last year. So, you know, there's a lot of, I would say, I don't want to say irrational emotion, because they're not irrational to them.
I'm like, do it. Say women are irrational, Jack.
I would say it's knee-jerk emotion.
Yeah.
Like they feel it, and therefore they're expressing it.
Yeah, I think that's I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think that's a female thing, especially a young female thing.
Yeah.
I think, because I remember that in myself. But how did having that many girls change your life? Because I know you also do a lot of, you climb in like, you know, electrical storms and all this like crazy shit. I know you still do crazy shit.
Yeah.
Did it ever cross your mind to not do that kind of stuff with your kids?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely, like, I used to not care about getting injured or fucked up doing things. I mean, I used to skydive and climb all the time and go on, crazy adventures and, all these things. And it definitely made me like pause and then like, I kind of want to stick around for a while. And not that anything I was doing was like hyper dangerous. It was all kind of controlled danger, if you will. But it gives, for me, having kids, like, made me think more about, okay, like, how I need to be more responsible. I need to be more kind of focused. I've got these humans that rely on me and I want to be around for. And it slowed things down. I mean, I still will do things, just not as, just in a different, like, it's just more, I guess, I have more consideration for them in the things I do.
Because the perception of your dad is that he did crazy shit. Did you grow up, like, is that an accurate statement, or is that just sort of the public persona of who your dad was?
I would say it's kind of 50-50, because there was crazy shit that happened that I saw that was like like whether, I can remember he played a show in Irvine, was it Irvine Meadows, Irvine Amphitheater, whatever, and there was a riot, and like a full-on riot, and they like tore this, like, they like stole all the band's equipment. It was like
to get on stage.
Yeah. It was like it was like the 90s.
And these are like when people like you.
Yeah.
Imagine what happens if they hate you.
Totally, yeah. This was like a you're awesome riot, not a we want to kill you riot. And that was pretty crazy. I mean, there was like, my dad had, no stranger, he had like substance issues. And so there was, I was around it a lot. Alcohol anyway, like, and he was always kind of on the wagon, off the wagon. But I didn't really start seeing super crazy stuff until like early teens. And so that, like, when I was on Ozfest with the touring festival my dad did, and that was just like, it was nuts.
But that was also around the time where, like, you as a family decided to put it on TV.
Yes.
So, it like coincided at the same time. It was like, see my dad do crazy shit, we should put it on TV.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it was like, it was more like, hey, this is weird, should we do it? And we're like, all right. No, it was, but to be honest with you, I don't even think we thought, I was 15 when we started filming that show. And so for me, I was just like super awkward stage of life anyway. I don't know any 15-year-old that's like got it together and is like a stellar human. I mean, maybe like some, crazy high school athlete, but.
I mean, maybe they're probably
yeah, they probably do weird things that people aren't watching.
I'm sure they do. Yeah. I'm sure they do.
But yeah, so we were just, for me, it was like my desire was like, wasn't that we were crazy. It was like, oh, I'm going to be on MTV. That's cool. Because MTV used to be cool.
MTV, remember when MTV was cool?
It was like, that was the epicenter.
I don't even know if they're around anymore. I think they
barely.
are.
They're just holding on like by a teen mom thread.
By a teen mom thread. Thank God teenage girls still get knocked up.
I know. What would they do without it?
Without it. Yeah. I mean, thankfully.
But hasn't social media like made a huge decline in like underage pregnancies?
I don't know.
I think there is some weird thing about like kids are having less sex and doing less drugs because of the internet.
Less sex than because they're just staring at their phones.
Yeah, because exactly.
We need to do some research on this because I think that's amazing. So you're growing up on TV. Do you think that formed who you were as a young man? Do you think that had an impact in shaping you, or do you think that you managed to get through that and be the person you wanted to be, or do you think it changed you?
It shaped me in the sense of like, growing up in LA, and like you have as well, like you see like there's like pockets of populations here that work in the industry. There's like the kind of token rich kids, there's like the artsy kids, there's like the musician groups, there's there's just like any city, there's folks. And I was like, you know what? This place kind of sucks. And a lot of people that grew up here kind of sucked. And after I got sober, I was like, I don't want to be that. Like, it doesn't really appeal to me kind of falling into the classic like LA stereotypes. And that's kind of what drove me, like having gone so far one way forced me to want to go the complete opposite.
Yeah. And what did that look like, the complete opposite? Because I know you. I mean, I know a little bit of you. We met, I don't even know how many years ago, 7, 8 years ago, I think, something like that. But, and I know you now as like, you know, this girl dad who's, you know, got his head completely on straight relatively. You have skulls in your tables, but I won't hold it against you. You know what? I mean, like, what does that look like to you?
You know, I think it was, I always, as a kid, was enamored by adventure, if that makes sense. Like I loved like adventure, any film that was like rooted in adventure, or any book, and I wanted to have my own adventures, and I didn't want to have the kind of adventures that people at the time perceived were like where it was at, like the LA kind of thing. You know, I'd felt like, you know, I got sober at 17, and I became like a total recovery nerd, like meetings constantly. And after a couple of years, I was like, okay, now what? And then that's when I had the opportunity to go and, you know, I was making travel shows in England. And that, you know, whereas, you know, my mom and sister pursued like a lot of these really high level, you know, very visible kind of programs, TV shows, post Osbournes, I kind of fell into doing these like kind of smaller travel documentaries and adventure series, and that kind of, I was like, it was great. I was like, this is so cool. Like
Did you always produce them as well?
No, the early on I didn't. I didn't start producing shows until like 2010 or 11. So like the first couple series I did post Osbournes, I'm credited as a producer, but I really didn't have that much, that much kind of skin in the game outside of just giving yes or no's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like token.
Yeah.
They give you a credit. And,
I agreed to that, or I said no to that, so I produced it.
So your first daughter is born, and like, what was that like for you in that moment?
I was terrified, because I was like, they don't, as you know, they don't give you like an instruction book. I mean, there are books, but it's not like an easy to read manual. And like, so I think so much of parenting books, there's different, they all kind of have their own style to it. I read some parenting books, but you know, my ex-wife gave birth to our baby girl. We're at the hospital and we go home. And I can remember the first night at home, I was like locking up the house and I could hear her crying upstairs. And I was like, whoa, this is like
there's a kid here.
Yeah, this is real. Like this is the way it's going to be now from here on out. And that was kind of daunting. But I kind of, after that initial like, oh shit, like I have a baby now, I just kind of got into it. Like I had fun. Like I had my own, like, you know, I'd pack my own diaper bag. From really early on, I was kind of going places alone with my daughters. I always have. Like I've never been like a dad to kind of be like, oh man, I've got like all 4 of them by myself. I'm just like, cool, all right, let's roll.
You spend a lot of time, at least based on social media, you spend a lot of time with your girls by yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys camp a lot.
Yeah. It's fun doing that stuff.
Do you find that people, when they meet you, they have a perception and then it's completely the opposite?
Sure. Because I think in most people's minds, they still see me as like a drunk 16-year-old on TV. And it's like, like that was a long time ago.
Are you still sober?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you stayed sober since 17?
Yeah. I just celebrated 20 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's kind of weird.
It is weird that you've been sober longer than a lot of people have been alive. I mean, obviously a lot of people, but like, I mean, most people can't even start drinking and, you know, until they're 21, and you were clean and sober before you even got there.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Kind of weird.
It is weird. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I've toyed with the idea of not drinking anymore. And then it becomes 5 o'clock and I stop toying with it.
Listen, you know, it's not, I like complete abstinence is not for everyone. There are some people that, you know, they need to have that ability to like turn things off a little bit. Yeah. I just get it in other ways. You know, it's funny. I've had conversations with my dad, and because I got sober so young, he's like, do you really think you were an addict? And my answer to him is always, I know I am, because when there's things that I get really addicted to outside of drugs and alcohol, I have the same physical response before I engage in that activity. I get this weird adrenaline dump, and I feel like I'm going to piss myself.
Really?
Yeah, on things that I get addicted to. Like if like my buddies hit me up like, hey, let's go play video games, like let's, we'll do in the group chat.
Yeah.
I'll get like super excited and feel like I'm going to piss myself.
Really?
Yeah. Or
because
like,
you're that addicted to video games?
yeah, I get that such a rush from it.
What is it about the things that, like, can you actually pinpoint what it is about the thing that you're addicted to?
Yeah, it's escapism.
Yeah.
It like shuts my mind off. Same with like jujitsu and climbing, because you're forced to be so present and in the moment that you can't let your mind wander. And I think for me, that's what I get. It's the escapism.
And what are the, like, in those moments, what are the things that you're escaping from? Is it just normal life, like everyday life?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I think it's whether it's like feelings or just everyday life. It's I have life on life's terms can be pretty stressful at times.
Amen.
Yeah.
So you have 3 girls, and then you get divorced.
Yep.
Did you think at that moment that you were done having children?
Oh yeah. I was like, never again, no more. Like,
ever gonna fall in love again? Like, you're just like done with women?
I was like open to having another woman in my life and falling in love again, but I was just, for the most part, like I was just like, no. Divorce was really very difficult. It's not easy. It's especially with kids. And I just was like, I don't ever want to experience this again. So let's just like eliminate the whole thing that creates that, potentially. And then I met my current fiance on a dating app, as you do in 2019 or whenever it was.
As you do.
And I certainly wasn't expecting. I really wasn't expecting to, 5 years later, 4 years later, have a baby and getting married soon. And it's like, yeah, it's awesome.
Looking back, do you see your marriage and subsequent divorce clearly at this point? Like, do you see there were signs, or do you think that, like, if you could go back, would you, I don't want to say change anything, because you obviously are incredibly happy where you're at right now.
Yeah.
But do you see it with perspective now?
Oh, I absolutely do. Yeah, I do. And I think a lot of it was, my ex-wife and I we're very different people. And it's, my eldest daughter has asked me, why did you and mommy separate?
Right.
And I kind of, it's the truthful answer is like, we wanted to lead ultimately different lives. Like when you boil it all down, we're very different people. And then, and I was like, it's just, I was like, think about the things that happen at my house that don't happen at your mom's house, and think about the stuff that happens at your mom's house that doesn't happen, it's like, it's very different. And it just, we tried all these ways to make it work. And, there was things that I'm not particularly proud of that I did in the marriage. But, it just came to an end, and it was very difficult to unwind. But they, I will say that I always think if there is such a thing, a sign of a good divorce can always be seen in the kids. Like, our kids are really balanced. They're really, it's not, I don't sense, or haven't thus far, 5 years in, haven't seen anything that's like, oh my God, we fucked the kids up.
Yeah.
It's they roll with it. They're very happy at their moms. They're very happy at mine. And, we get to kind of, the upside to, this scenario is like, hey, like, I get to wholeheartedly live out, the life with my kids the way that I want to. And, and Ari, my fiance, it's kind of like cool. Like, we get to have our world, and then their mom gets to have, her world.
I love that. I've never actually heard that before, but I think it really is accurate that if you look at the children of divorce, if they seem like they've got their shit together, then some obviously people had the children's best interest at heart.
Yeah.
Huh. Was it hard because your parents have been married for so long?
Yeah.
And they put a lot of their life on TV as well. Your mom is like an open book as well, to a certain extent in her life as well. And your dad's been very open. Their marriage seems like it's had up and downs, but they've stayed together.
Yeah.
Was that a good model for you, or?
I think there was an expectation of like, oh, you can't fail. You can't. Right. There was a level of that. Like, but the good thing was like my parents were, ultimately supportive of whatever I wanted to do. If they were like, hey, you want to stay with her and try and figure this out? I mean, sure. We'll support that. If you want to separate, we'll support that. It's your life. And they were really great through the divorce and being supportive. There was never like a, what are you doing? You got to stay together forever kind of thing. Yeah. But for me, just my mindset was like, oh, it's I just felt like it was at first it felt like a failure. And then you realize like divorce is actually a death. Yeah. It's so you kind of have the same, or at least I did. I had the same kind of grieving process that you would over like the death of someone. Yeah, it's the death of an ideal for sure. Yeah, for sure. One of the times that we actually met out in public, it was at an event where I was in. It was for a multiple sclerosis event. Yeah. I was there supporting Selma Blair because we had just worked together. And I had no idea that you had been diagnosed with MS. I didn't know. In my mind, I was like, why is Jack here? And then I had no idea. Yeah. And at that point, your diagnosis was 5 years before that or something? Yeah, about that, yeah. How does something like that change your life? I mean, obviously it changes your life. Yeah. It was if anything, I got really frustrated because I got diagnosed when I was like 27. Which is really young, right? For a diagnosis? They say like the average is between 20 and 40. That's like the national average for getting diagnosed. But I don't know many people that get diagnosed kind of below 30. Yeah. I met some, and as you kind of walk through life, I meet all sorts of people that are in various kind of stages with MS. But I was it was like, it was frustrating. Pearl had just been born. And I was, I'd been sober like 10 years, and I was like feeling like, all right, cool, this new chapter in my life, like having a baby. And it felt like the rug got pulled out. I was like, oh, like what, and then I kind of went through like the woe is me, like what was the point? Why am I, why did I even like, why even like try and like keep your shit together? But that was like a short-lived moment. I'm amazed that you didn't fall off the wagon. Yeah, I mean, there was, if any, I honestly think if it wasn't for my daughter being born, I probably would have. Because I would have just been like, fuck it, let's just burn this whole thing down. I got fucked anyway. I'm jumping out of a plane. Yeah, just cut the parachute off. In a lightning storm. But it was just, and then it just kind of hit this place of like, oh, this is so annoying. Like that's the kind of mind that's where I went with it. But I tell you what, like touch wood, I'm like really lucky in the sense that like I've been lucky with it. And the thing with MS is that it's so, as I like to say, it's as unique to the individual that has it as their own fingerprint. Interesting. It's so different for everyone. Like Selma, I ran into Selma the other day, actually. Funny you say that. And, her MS, my MS, like you would never believe that we have the same kind of, disease. Yeah. And, unfortunately, she's in a much more progressed situation than I am. But like, I am not like all-star MS patient. I'm terrible about, I haven't taken medication in a long time. Wow. Yeah. I haven't had a significant flare-up in about 10 years. How were you diagnosed? I went blind in my right eye, developed something called optic neuritis.
That must have been terrifying.
Oh, yeah. I was like, oh my God, what is happening?
Yeah. At
And
27.
Yeah. Like I lost about 95% of my vision in my right eye. I could only see like the corners of like peripheral vision.
Overnight or like slowly?
It came on in about 3 days. It started with like a little black dot, and then it turned into like a cigar shape, and then it turned into like the L shape Tetris block.
Yeah.
It looked like an L-shaped Tetris block, and then the next day it was just like black.
Wow.
Yeah, it was weird.
That is terrifying.
Yeah, and it's really strange that when you lose like your vision to that capacity, you realize like, oh wow, like eyeballs are really like screens. Like it's weird because I could shine a flashlight directly into my eye and I couldn't see a damn thing. But yeah, I could see it it was so strange.
That is so freaky.
Yeah.
So freaky.
And so then I came home because I was away filming, went to the eye doctor. The eye doctor knew what it was, but there were, ophthalmologists. They can't diagnose neurological diseases.
But he knew what it was.
Yeah, he was
Did he indicate?
He was like, hey, I'm calling over to Cedars. You need to go get an MRI immediately.
Okay.
And I was like,
did you think you had like brain cancer?
yeah, I did. I thought, okay, I've got like a tumor behind my eye,
Yeah.
or maybe, best case scenario, I thought maybe like my like cornea detached, but he would have been able to see and he couldn't. And then when I went to the hospital, they began to run all these tests, and they were like, oh, we think you could have had a stroke. And I was like, well, that's weird. Like I don't feel any strokey type normal symptoms. Like my speech wasn't slurred. I wasn't losing any motor skills. And then it was like, oh wait, no, this is MS. So.
Were you alone when you got your diagnosis?
No, actually, my ex-wife was with me at the hospital because she picked me up from the airport to take me to the eye doctor.
Right.
And so then she was with me at the hospital, and then like when word kind of got around and my like group of friends and my old production company, like the steady stream of visitors, pre-COVID, you could have anyone come visit you.
Yeah, right.
It was just like a party.
Like, hey, who's coming in today?
Yeah, exactly.
So you say Pearl was part of the reason why you didn't sort of like, throw caution to the wind and just like do whatever the fuck you wanted.
Yeah.
But what was it in did you have any tips or techniques to sort of push yourself through the day that?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I called a good friend of mine in recovery, and I called him. I was like, John, I was like, I got some shitty news. I got MS, and I'm like freaking out. And he's the driest, most cynical motherfucker alive, and he's like a wealth of knowledge in the best way possible. And he just goes, oh, and I'm like, he's like, well, you gonna die today? I'm like, no, and he's like, call me tomorrow. Hung up. And I was like, okay. I just called him tomorrow, and he's like, you good? I'm like, I'm a little bummed. He's like, you gonna die today? I'm like, no. He's like, call me tomorrow. And it was just that simple just bust it down to basics and use that cliche term, keep it a day at a time. And then I just got so distracted with having a baby, and like, I just was like, all right, let's just keep plowing on, and we'll see how this develops over time. And like I said, I was really, really lucky. And I think partially why I've been as kind of lucky as I have been with MS is, I went to Germany and did all this stem cell shit.
I've read about that you did stem cells, which are just starting to become legal here.
Yeah.
What is the idea behind stem cells that you understand, and how did it help your diagnosis? So
the way that it got handled in Germany with the stem cells was, I went to this clinic. The moment you get there, they draw a shit ton of blood, and they send your blood off to go get stem cells extracted and then harvested over 10 days. In that 10-day period, the place I went to was like doing crazy detox. I was doing like chelation therapy, ozotherapy, all these different ways to kind of like pull toxins out of my body. the thought process is, MS is over there anyway. MS is an autoimmune disease. So let's fix the immune system.
Okay.
Whereas here, they're like, oh, you have an autoimmune disease that affects your nervous system. Let's treat the nervous system.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of focus on like the root cause of the problem, not necessarily what the problem, what the effects the problem was causing.
Right.
And after 10 days, they're like, okay, like these little vials turn up, but like it just looks like water, and it's like, well, here's your stem cells. And the way that they described them to me was like stem cells are like they're just like these like little fixes. Like you plug them in and they'll fix the problem because they know they can attach to like, it's kind of hard to explain, but they said it like they will attach to things that are broken and fix them. But if there's nothing that needs fixing, they just kind of, your body will just...
Your body pees them out.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
It's like nothing. And what they did for me was they injected the stem cells into my lymphatic system.
Okay.
So they were going to go, hey, they were like, we're thinking about injecting it into your optic nerve to see if it'll fix your eye. And I was like, fuck no. I was like, how does that work? They're like, well, we'll pull your eye and then under that membrane that we'll just stick a needle in under your eyeball into your nerve. And I'm like, so how are you going to know? They're like, well, we'll have all these ultrasound. And I'm like, no, let's just go lymphatic system. I'll roll the dice. I'll my eye now, as I say, it's like TV from the 70s, and my left eye is like a 4K TV. So I could see, it's just not clear.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, they plugged it into my lymphatic system and not my eyeball, and it was great. I didn't have a cold or a sickness for like 2 years.
That's amazing.
It was so weird. Like,
when did the eyesight start coming back?
It took about a year to get to a place where I didn't have any like color blindness in it, or kind of missing, I wasn't missing anything.
Was it literally sort of like one of those things where you're like, well, this is a really clear indication of if the stem cells are working, because it is literally my vision?
No, because they couldn't put it into because the optic nerve was damaged, and there's now there's the treatment out there. They're thinking to remyelinate your nerves. So what MS does is it strips away the myelin, which is like the fatty sheath around nerve endings.
Okay.
So it's kind of, think of it as like the rubber around a copper wire. It eats that rubber away, exposes the wire, and it starts eroding the copper wire.
Which is why it attacks the nerves.
Exactly.
The nerves are literally degenerating.
Yes.
Okay.
And so they couldn't reverse it. The hope was, we'll plug it into your lymphatic system, we'll get your immune system right, and you'll no longer have any flare-ups. That was the theory. And like, it's been pretty good for like 10 years now, nearly. And so I'm kind of just like, you can't say like, oh, that shit worked, because next thing you know, the FDA is putting you in some gulag. But but it fucking, like,
right.
I don't know. I feel good.
Can you go back and do stem cell treatments all the time?
Yeah. Every 2 years, they say, and I have it. They say, if you need to, just come back and we'll do the same thing.
Can a person walk off the street? Like, could I just go to Germany and be like,
yes,
let's do some stem cells?
Yes, 100%.
If there's anything broken, it'll fix it.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. There's these health clinics you go to, and they have, doctors, and they have like a different type of like medical provider there. They're called health practitioners.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like I guess it would be somewhere between like a PA and a doctor. Like you're not quite
right.
an MD, because I guess MDs in Germany tend to just work at hospitals.
Okay.
To my understanding, it's very here's the most fucked up thing about it. Like, when I was there at this clinic, they're like, oh, where we harvest our stem cells, it's the oldest stem cell harvesting clinic in the country. And I'm like, oh, cool. Well, they're like, yeah, it was founded in 1947. And you do them, you're like, oh, wait.
You're doing the math?
Yeah, and you're like, oh, wait, this is all like Nazi experiments that they were like, all right, cool. And then like the dust settled from World War II. And they're like, well, we have all this data from the fucked up experiments we did. Like, might as well use it.
Crazy.
Yeah. Isn't that nuts?
That's nuts.
But it's to think, though, that in Germany, they've been doing this since the 1940s. And over here, we're still like, ooh, I don't know.
It's one of those things where there's so much bureaucracy and red tape in this country because of liability and because we're such a litigious society that there are things as simple as, in France, grocery stores can't throw away food anymore. Give it to the people who need it. In the United States, that would never be allowed because you'd be so scared that you were going to get sued that they won't allow it. The fact that organs that are harvested have 24 hours to be in another body. Yeah. Like there's just certain rules and regulations, not that you're going to go wander around with an organ.
You might though.
You might. Like there are I would imagine there are people that are so far away from an organ that the viability of the organ is actually more than 24 hours, but because of our laws in the United States, they're too far away for an organ transplant, therefore someone else closer gets it. Yeah. It's things like that, in different countries, they're doing it differently. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you talk about the autoimmune disease and how it's all about your immune system. What are the things that you're doing? Because it's sort of like, I know that you live a very busy, clean, like athletic, full life.
I try. I go through phases of like just going into like, oh, I'm just going to be a lazy turd for a few months and like gain a bunch of weight. And then it's like, oh, wait, I need to like, that's not cool on the scale.
Is it that it's not cool on the scale that's the reminder, or is it that I have MS, maybe I shouldn't?
It's that it's not cool on the scale, and then it's like, oh, it hurts to move. Oh, my feet hurt. I need to lose weight. It's for me, what my whole thought is, a body in motion stays in motion. Like, and so I just, since getting diagnosed, like I've constantly done, there was a period, where I just was like a CrossFit junkie. And then, that was like what I was all about. And then it was just like, all right, just go to the gym. And then I got kind of bored with just like exercising just to exercise. And so it kind of led me to kind of finding jujitsu. And like, that's kind of my really cliche bro-y hobby right now, but it's fun.
But don't your daughters do jujitsu now?
Yeah, my daughters, they dip in and out. My 8-year-old was like an all-star gymnast in the making and just decided to quit over the summer vacation.
Yeah, we talked about this.
And then my eldest was doing it for a little bit, and then she got her feelings hurt at jujitsu, and boy was a little too rough with her. But I think she's gonna. I think I'm kind of planting seeds like, hey, if you want to come back. Like, I don't like to pressure them.
It's smart though. My daughter, we were watching Frozen last night because like she gets like, 15-minute bites and we break up the movie because I don't want her to watch 2 hours of a fucking movie. But we sit down and we're at the part where Elsa's like fighting. And I'm like, look at Elsa go. She's fighting so... She's protecting herself super good. And so now my daughter, I was like, do you want to learn how to protect yourself? And she's like, I want to learn how to fight. And I was like, oh, shit.
She's like, can I freeze people?
I think it's smart. My husband is like, we absolutely have to get her into some sort of like, I call it fight training. It's like defense, like self-defense, something.
Absolutely. I think especially for girls, it's like, and I always say, like, for myself, like, I never want to be a victim, and I never want my kids to be a victim. And if you know how to, stop that from happening, through just being either cautious, knowing what to look out for, or if if literal push does come to shove, it's like, cool, I can dominate this situation.
I just pretend like I'm tough.
You're pretty tough, though.
Everyone thinks this.
But you were like competitive Spartan racing. Like, that's not for the faint-hearted.
That is my competitive nature.
Okay.
My competitive nature has the ability to take over the fact that I'm a complete pussy. And I mean that in like, I mean it I mean that word in like a very respectful term.
Yeah.
I am a complete baby when it comes to a lot of things, but I'm so competitive that it overrides it. And I, in some way, have the ability to pretend like I'm tough.
Okay. Well, obviously I'm not like deep into the mind of Katee Sackhoff, but I would say from outwardly, like I never would have classified you as someone who's a complete pussy.
Thank you.
Yeah, you play it off well.
I'm very good at pretend. I'm very good at pretend. So right now, I know that there are a couple things that you're really into. One is military and tactical, like everything.
Yeah.
And another is like ghosts.
Yeah.
Where did your fascination with these things come from? And let's start with ghosts, I guess. Let's start with that.
So the ghost stuff kind of came from growing up watching X-Files.
Okay.
Like I loved that show, like obsessed with it. That was my jam when I was a kid. And it kind of sparked my interest in the unexplained, the paranormal, whatever you want to call it. And really, for me, it started with like UFO things. Like that's kind of what led me into, wanting to, all right, is there a way I can like, when I was a kid, I was in 5th grade, I went to school on career day with like, come dressed as what you want to be. I came dressed as a ufologist. Total nerd. Total nerd.
This is like a person who studies
UFOs.
Yeah.
It's an actual career, not my career currently. I think it would be, interesting, but, probably not as exciting as I thought it would be. In 2011, I got a call from as in LA as you do from my agent. He's like, "Hey, you like UFOs and ghosts and stuff?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm kind of into it." And he's like, come down and meet with this production company that's putting together this paranormal show, and they want to meet with you." And I was like, "Okay." So I went down and like chatted with them and kind of got in the weeds with it. And they were like, "Hey, we're gonna give you and a couple other hosts like your own cameras, and you're gonna go film ghost hunting, just like Blair Witch style, like on your own." And it's kind of how it came to be. And that was a show I did called Haunted Highway in 2011 to 13, and then about 5 years ago, and I got into doing more ghost stuff. And it's one of these things where, and I'm sure you can relate to this because the genres that you work in, like if your fans like the work you do, they are fucking loyal. Like in the science fiction world, like any Battlestar Galactica fan is like, they're gonna roll with you anywhere because they're like, no, that's Starbuck.
They'll watch anything I do.
Yeah. They want to back Starbuck.
They do.
So it's same kind of thing in the paranormal world. Like if they like the way you investigate, if they like how you do things, like they're incredibly loyal. And it's just kind of that loyalty, I think, is just kind of carried over to all these different shows I've done. And it's fun. Like there's so many like weird things I've experienced and seen, and I'm not, I don't jump to like, I'm not hysterical with it. Like I'm not like, oh my God. It's like, I'm very like skeptical.
Yeah.
And so when things do happen that I can't explain, it's like, all right, like there's something to this. I don't know what it is, but there's something to this.
What's the weirdest thing that you've seen that you can't explain?
Man, I've been sat somewhere and like I was in the stairwell of this old building. It's actually in LA. And this always jumps out to me. I was being interviewed by a producer, and it literally, it sounded like someone came and like grabbed the door handle and like rattled the door handle to open the door. And we even called out, we're like, "Hey, we're shooting in here, like give us 5. And then we were like, okay. And then it happened again, and we're like, "Hey, like fuck off. Like you're disturbing us." And then the door opened. And we were like, okay, that was pretty wild. What the hell? Later that evening in the same spot, I was, I'd gone in and I'd shut this door. He said, "All right, whoever opened up that door, do it again right now." And literally, and I shut it and I checked it, and that thing was latched, and like closed. Sorry, I'm turning my phone off. And the door literally just went opened. I can't explain that. Like I could, hey, door open. Like it's not like there was no wind.
Like you have no abilities.
Yeah, I'm not a Jedi. I cannot use the Force to open doors. I'm not like what was that guy who used to bend spoons? Was it Uri Geller?
I know who you're talking about, but I have no idea what his name was.
I can't explain how or why it happened. But then I've had things where like I'll put a flashlight down and be like, hey, if something's here, turn this flashlight on. Flashlight turns
off. Yeah. Or on.
On. And then I've seen weird shadows walking, like moving down hallways. I've never seen like full on apparition.
No.
Yeah.
Right after I did your show, we were staying the night at our new house in Oregon.
Oh, nice.
And I was telling my husband about it, and we're sleeping because we don't have beds, and the previous owners left us a couch. So we're sleeping on the couch. Our daughter's in the room next door in her pack and play sleeping. And just as we turn the lights out to go to sleep, the hallway light turns on. And I was like, okay, so we turn it off. And then there's like a really loud noise. And my husband was like, where was that? And I said, it sounded like it came from like inside the house. So my husband's like walking the house. And I was like, and all the while, we've been trying to figure out why people would put so much money into an amazing house and then sell it. And I looked at my husband and I said, if this fucking house is haunted, we are going to bring people in. They're going to sage it out. I don't care what happens, but we need to tell them they're not allowed to be here. And we need to ask them to leave. And it was right after we had our conversation. I was like, great, our house is haunted. Then it happened again the next night. And my husband found out that light was on a timer to turn on at the exact time by the previous owners. So because they traveled a lot, they didn't want people to think no one was there.
Ah.
So it was the light downstairs in the basement that would turn on every night at 10 o'clock. And I was like, oh, thank Christ.
I mean,
can't explain the noise though.
Yeah. I mean, you can always just be like, hey, you're not welcome.
Let it ride.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. I can come do an episode in your house.
Please do. Please do. Did you watch the UFO hearings?
I did. Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah. Okay. So, like, the excited, like, part of me is like, oh my God, yes, like, we're getting there. And then I just go, when has the government ever been honest about anything? When have they ever had like a legitimate, honest hearing about anything where like people were held accountable and shit got changed because of it? So I'm very good friends with Jeremy Corbell, who is like an investigative journalist who is at the kind of spear tip of all this stuff rolling out. He's the one releasing all the footage that is of the gimbal and the go fast and all these different UFOs. You should get him on the podcast, by the way. Jeremy's awesome.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's great.
All right, we'll go for it. We should get Jeremy on.
And
my producer's obsessed with UFOs.
Okay, yeah. I'll connect you with Jeremy, don't worry. But they, like, he'll tell me till I'm blue in the face I'm wrong, but, like, I think it could be a complete diversionary tactic.
We talked about this the other day. There is a part of me that agrees with you.
Yeah.
There are so many things that are going wrong in the world, in our country that need attention, and then you have these UFO hearings to divert attention from things.
Yeah, I mean, listen, but it could be actually that could all be true. I just think that the timing of it, I'm like, all right, look what's going on. You've got like, the whole Trump campaign getting arrested. You've got all the shit with like Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and all these emails. Like there's a lot of stuff coming on right now, which, aliens would be a great way to just, hey, everyone, drink the Kool-Aid. Never, nothing to see here. But that's just
nothing to see here.
There's a lot to see.
I mean, listen, we talked about this, that I feel like everything can be debunked. Mm-hmm. And Christian's like, absolutely not. So I don't know. I agree with you that it's a diversion from a lot of.
But then again, it might not be, and it could be 100% real, and that could be like an actual. Here's the thing. That those images that were released of objects, and I've seen things where I'm like, what the shit was that? I just don't think at this stage in the game the government would ever allow the secret to come out in this capacity. Although, what a great way to... I mean, look, a virus shut us down for...
2 years?
2 years. Can you imagine what an impending alien invasion would do?
Imagine.
They're coming. Everyone would be like, I'll do whatever you say, Dark Overlord government. Like, you want me to give you my children here?
I don't know. Listen, we said this. I was right in line getting my vaccine with everybody else and felt very safe because of it. So, I'd probably drink the Kool-Aid. I don't know.
Don't drink. Question authority, always.
What's funny is I do question authority, and I raise my child to question authority. I raise my child to always ask questions. I do believe that there is a very big difference between an obedient child and a thoughtful child. And so I do that, but I am also, like I said, I'm a hypochondriac. So you tell me that something's going to make me better, I'll get it. Okay, so now my next question: what gave you your interest in your sort of affinity towards firearms, tactical, military, things like that?
When I was a kid, my real life goal, I wanted to join the army. I was 15 when
the U.S. Army or the British Army?
Yeah, U.S. Army. Well, it kind of started when I lived in England. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do the British Army. And then we moved here, and then 9/11 happened when I was in high school, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna join.
Like so many people did.
And that kind of got diverted because we started making TV shows instead. But I just I've always kind of, I do very well in really structured environments. If it's go to bed at 9, be up at 5, I'm like, okay. And if there's consequences if I don't do that, I'm good. When I'm sure you can relate to a degree, but when you're on production, it's I'm there on call time. I'm there. It's just cool. If there's a schedule that someone of authority has given me, I will follow it.
And there's a simplicity and a calmness I get from someone telling me where I need to be.
Yeah, it's awesome in a fucked up way. And so I was I knew that about myself from a young age, and I was like, oh, I think I'd be pretty good at this. And then as far as the firearm stuff goes, I used to hunt with 22s when I was a kid with my dad, and any good red-blooded expat, the moment I turned 21, I was like, I'm gonna go buy a gun. I'm gonna learn how to. I'm gonna exercise my Second Amendment right. Yeah, and so it just that's where the hobby started. And I've done everything from competitive long range shooting to competitive pistol shooting, and it's that weird thing that I'm kind of secretly good at, and I just kind of don't talk about it too much. Just because everyone's like, oh, you're going to hell. You kill babies because you own a gun.
Because you own a gun.
Which isn't true. But it's just, and then I become a police reserve. So obviously, it's something that I've always, as an adult, it's been a part of my life.
I grew up with guns in my household. We grew up in a small town. My dad's hunted. So we grew up around firearms. And when I moved into a house by myself, it became something that was advised to me. My home was broken into when I lived in the Hollywood Hills. And the police officer, the detective who came to the house, advised me of two things. He said, number one, we'll never find who this was. So if you are a person who is fearful at all, I would sell your house, because you'll never sleep through the night here calmly again or feel at peace. And he said, if you were my daughter, I would say to move and get a firearm. And I was it never occurred to me, because I was well, I don't hunt, my family has hunting rifles and that whole thing. My sister has a handgun. My brother has handguns, but it never occurred to me. But as soon as he said that and I lived alone, I got my gun license, bought a gun, put it in the side dresser in a locked case and haven't opened it since. It's still there. And, you know, when I was filming Longmire, I actually brought it with me. And I would go shooting with some guys in the crew, and they taught me how to focus my gun and make sure that it was aligned, because it's a revolver. And so all these things that I never learned, that they taught me how. And it's still there though. Yeah. So, and it's, you know, but there's definitely, there's definitely some strong opinions in this country on both sides.
And listen, I think there's the right way to gun ownership, and there's the wrong way to gun ownership. And just like with freedom of speech, there's a right way to execute freedom of speech, and there's a wrong way to execute freedom of speech. And it's, it's divisive. People are either, I've traveled the world to enough places and spent a lot of time in enough countries to realize, like, you know what, there is something to be said about how, as cliche as it is, there is a benefit to being free rather than safe. And it is not necessarily a popular thing to discuss. And I have kids at school, and it's something that every day I drop them off at school, it goes through my mind. But, I kind of, for me, I think that there is a huge benefit to a society that is, that is armed versus not, historically speaking.
It's interesting because this is two opposing things. I agree that free versus safe is a valid argument, 100%. I, however, believe that the path to gun ownership should be more difficult in this country. I do believe that there should be universal background checks, and there should be a national gun registry. And I think that anyone, and I am not up on all of the laws in all the different states, and that's why this country is confusing, because every state has different laws.
Interpretation of it, yeah.
But I believe that anyone who has been convicted of domestic abuse should never be able to own a firearm again. So I think that I am a very moderate view on gun ownership, and I do believe that. But I respect the right for people to have different opinions on this subject, because I know that it's an opinion that even in my own household, not my own household is very different opinions, but between my whole family and my sister and my brother and I have very different opinions as well.
Yeah, and it's and that's, but that's what I kind of fall back on. I was like, hey, that's the cool thing about this place. If you want to exercise that right, you can. Yeah. Obviously it's different in every state, and there's different needs for it, and what is a need for a gun in Idaho is very different than LA, and it's very different. It's but it's just I think having the ability to ultimately exercise it if you choose to is, I think, there's a huge amount of power in that. And and where I kind of ultimately lie with it is, like, I'm probably, a hair right of center with it, because I'm not one of these, like, unfettered, like, oh no, you should just come out of the womb and be handed a gun. Like, no, like I believe in, like I said, responsible gun ownership. You should train with it. You should have complete understanding of what is in your hands and the ability to use it. Just like, I don't know. It's
like a car.
Yeah. Like you can't, but then you get into the sketchy thing of, like, okay, when you have to essentially take a lesson or have a qualification to even own a gun like you would a car, what's to say that then couldn't be applied to other constitutional rights? What's to say someone can't come up to you and go, hey, we did this for the Second Amendment, where you have to qualify to have it through this government program. That applies with your First Amendment. You now have to take this class on how to speak publicly, and you have to take this class on how to write.
I don't know, Jack. I feel like there's a large portion of our population that needs to take that class.
What, in how to speak?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck yes.
I do. I think that there is. I think that.
But Alex Jones has been right about a lot of things.
Oh, fuck off. I think that, and I truly believe this. That I believe that somebody's that someone's right to exercise freedom of speech stops at the point where they are harming other people. But the problem is that's also objective.
Yeah, 100%. And it's such a gray area. I mean, like, and what is harmful language now might not be harmful language in 10 years. I mean,
Agreed.
think in the 80s, they were trying to ban heavy metal and hip hop because it was harmful language and it was inciting the delinquency in minors. And it's like, now it's, you know, it's kind of par for the course.
Well, listen, now you can go, you know, we're trying to ban books, but your kid can go and play, you know, video games and blow off a hooker's head. So it's fine, you know.
I saw some meme.
Wait, I think it's the same meme that we probably both saw because it was such a phenomenal argument. It's like you can sit there and you can ban books, but my kid's gonna go play not Call of Duty, but it was Grand Theft Auto and go, you know, kill a hooker.
Yeah.
It's like where in our country and many countries, where is the common sense?
Yeah,
rule?
and it's the selective outrage, and it's the selection of like you know, well, I guess you know, people are up in arms about like, oh my God, we need to, and listen, death sucks, people dying sucks, it's that goes without saying, but like, where is the same outrage about, you know, heart disease as there is about gun death? You know, more people are going to die from heart disease, and that's for the most part, very avoidable because, you know, look at all the shit that we're given to eat.
Well, I mean, I agree with you 100% on this one. I think that the food that we eat in this country is absolutely appalling. The food that is legal in this country that is illegal in other countries is absolutely
It's insane
appalling.
when you look at the list. You're like, wait a minute, why is my milk lasting 6 weeks in the fridge?
Yeah, absolutely. Why do you go to another country and eggs sit on the counter?
Yeah.
And here they're washed, so we've got to put them in the fridge, and they don't last as long. I mean, they're red dye number 5 is illegal in the UK. Like if you look at food products that are made by the same manufacturer in the UK and the United States, the ingredients are completely different.
Yeah.
And it is really upsetting to look at, like, talking from parents of little girls getting their periods now at 9 years old.
My daughter's 11, and it's like it's on the horizon. Like it's like any day now, and it's terrifying. I think my sisters were like 14.
I was 15 when I got my period.
Yeah, and
15.
And everyone's just like, well, just is what it is. I'm like, hang on a second, like it is what it is. That's the excuse now. It's like, fuck that.
No, it's our dependency on things in this country, on not only the you know, the chemicals that they're putting on our food, the chemicals that they're putting on the crops, our dependency on single-use plastics, our dependency on petroleum, and all of these things are just, it's really scary.
Yeah.
It's really scary.
Yeah. I wonder what the apocalypse is really going to look like.
I mean, I don't think we're there, but I think it's going to be a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah. It's definitely going to get worse.
I mean, if it does, I'd like to come to your bunker.
Okay. Yeah, you're welcome. You can come for sure.
I mean, when we're done with this, I'd like the address.
I'll give you, it's actually, it's a quest to get to it. You have to go to these like kind of geocaches to find the map. It's like an Indiana Jones quest.
I mean, a person who loves video games, I would imagine that this is like,
oh yeah,
your quest, shall you accept it?
Exactly.
It's like, I'm like, get your shit together, Robin, we're going.
Pack the bags. Well, you guys are kind of halfway there. You're in Oregon, you know, you guys are
we're
getting
halfway there.
Yeah, you're getting further away from, you know.
I mean, I think my brother has a bunker at this point.
Okay,
so
well,
it's
good.
fine.
Yeah.
It's totally
You
fine.
gotta have, yeah.
I think I would rather die in the apocalypse than spend a century underground with my brother waiting for the air to be clean again.
Yeah, that would be rough. That would be real. Like, getting locked in a bunker with my entire family.
With your entire family?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could hang with that. I think how big is the bunker?
Well, it depends. I mean, if you're stuck
is
down
it
there
this
long
room
enough,
or is it like this building?
I mean, if it's the building, I'll be like, we're in.
Yeah.
We're in. If it's this room,
it's a tough
choice.
It's a tough sell.
I may choose to go it with The Walking Dead above ground.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a wise choice. I think one might fare better mentally, knowing that you can just kind of run around and and forage and shoot zombies in the head.
I think that our next show, that we should do a show together called Doomsday Preppers, and it's like both sides.
Yeah, like what would be in your doomsday bunker? Like, what would you have?
I mean, my family.
Mm-hmm.
My dogs.
Okay.
Would
you eat your dogs if it came down to it?
I say no, but if they died of natural causes and my child was starving, absolutely.
What if they didn't die of natural causes, but your daughter was going to starve to death?
The little one would go first.
Yeah. Start small. Yeah.
I would start small.
Yeah.
I would start small. So in my bunker.
This just got dark.
It got really dark. I would bring some sort of something to grow food underground, like hydroponics or something to grow underground. So I might need my brother because he knows how to grow weed.
Okay.
So, and I would probably bring like a ton of canned food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Am I forgetting things?
No, I mean,
we need water.
We definitely need water. Would you bring like exercise equipment?
Probably, but at the end of the day, I could lift the cans.
It's true. You could lift the cans. You could do prison style.
You could do like prison rules.
Yeah.
Like prison rules.
Making shanks out of toothbrushes just in case, the zombies break into the bunker.
I would bring some sort of like generator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Entertainment. All right, you could only bring 5 CDs.
5 CDs?
That's it. I don't want to say, because what do you say, like 5 albums on a pod? I don't know. Like,
it's on a pod. Okay, so I would bring my record player.
Okay, so you'd go vinyl.
Because I could do this if I had to.
Oh, that's so smart. Yeah.
See? And then that could also be your workout.
There you go.
You just switch arms and you listen to some Black Sabbath.
There you go.
I mean, like
just to really set the vibe,
really set the vibe. Would you ever do another show with your mom and dad?
Yeah. I mean, we've done, like, my dad and I did a travel show together, and a few years back. That was a lot of fun. We then went for like 3 years. Yeah, we've all kind of worked together in our own way. I think for me, the hardest, I guess the toughest hurdle to jump over would be having to work with my sister a lot. Like, we're great when we're not working together.
Yeah.
A lot. Like, we can do the odd thing here and there, but when it's like long-term working, it's tough.
Is it that your personalities just don't...
We're very different. We're opposite ends, like, on everything.
Does she have purple hair right now?
She does.
I think I saw a photo.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. Kelly's, she's looking good right now.
Just had a baby.
She slimmed down. She's, kind of enjoying motherhood, and she's kind of figuring out, like, all right, like, how much am I going to work? What do I want to do? It's, she's kind of in that phase, which I think most mothers kind of go through. Yeah.
I get that. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I'm serious about like a doomsday show.
We should do a doomsday show.
But we should do it like it's sort of like a HGTV bunker edition, like where we go to people's bunkers.
Extreme makeover bunker edition. I actually, a guy working on my place right now, he's like, oh yeah, I spent 5 years building underground bunkers. Yeah.
We need that guy.
I know, we do.
We need that guy, and we need, what's her name from Magnolia? Chip and Joanna Gaines.
Yeah, we need Chip and Joanna Gaines. We absolutely do. We need some reclaimed wood in that bunker.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
Because it just makes sense for the environment.
We need a live, laugh, love sign in there.
Live, laugh, love. Don't use too much electricity. Sign. We absolutely do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in for it.
Okay.
I'm going to need to know. You guys tell us if you'd watch it.
Yeah, I think it could be some really compelling TV.
Yeah, I really do. It's like the darkest.
Yeah, how do you recycle your poop? Oh, that's so cool.
We just eat it and poop it out again. Never occurred to me. Thank you. Thank you. This is exactly what I thought that this was going to be. It's just a bunch of crazy randomness, but also to get to know a little bit more about you. And, we've known each other for a while now, but don't know a ton about each other. And
this has been great. Yeah. And we've had some good convo lately.
We have had good convo lately. Yeah. I think that you are incredibly inspirational.
Oh, thank you.
Not only because of your diagnosis, which I think that you your outlook on life is really beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
But I think that who you are when people met you and who you've grown into be is truly admirable.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you.
And I'm glad to be your friend.
Yeah,
So,
likewise. Even though you're moving away now.
I know. Well, listen, Oregon.
There you go. It's not too far.
It's not too far.
No. You'll be here a lot.
I will be here a lot. You guys, thank you for listening. Again, this has just been more blah, blah, blah with Jack Osbourne. Like, subscribe. And where can people find you right now? I should say that.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all at Jack Osbourne. And then we've got the Osbournes podcast comes out September 25th. And then Ghost and Grit, the podcast you did, comes out July 13th. Oh, sorry. October 13th.
October 13th.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Friday the 13th too.
Oh, fuck me.
Did that on purpose.
I never realized that I've been so close to a human skull, and now I have been.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
thank you for that. I appreciate it.
I'm going to get you one now. Send it to you.
Well, you can bring it to me when you de-ghost my house.
Okay, there we go.
Okay. All right, everyone. Bye. Have a good one.
Blah, blah, blah. With Katee Sackhoff.